has not diminished over the years.
Good evening, viewers. It's nice to be back here once again, and I take this opportunity to welcome you to our daily conference session. This program is telecasting from the School of Social Sciences, and our today's topic is Information and Society. And this program is basically for the students of BLIS, and the subject code is BLIS 01. Well, once again, we are very privileged to have Mrs. Renu Arora from NISCARE as a resource person. She's a scientist F in NISCARE and also the head of teaching and education and training in NISCARE. I'm sorry for that.
No problem.
Well, she has been associated with IGNOU for a very long time. Like she was a counselor. She has been a counselor of BLI's program, and also she has written so many units of our BLIS, MLIS, and BGDLAN programs. Well, thank you very much once again for accepting our invitation for this program. Well, our today's topic is Information and Society, and we will be addressing our discussion on resource sharing and networking, digital libraries, National Knowledge Commission. And now may I request Mrs. Renu Arora to kindly take your time.
Thank you. So we have already established the role of libraries in the modern day society, and in my earlier presentation I have already told you how important it is to have the libraries in our societies and what all is being done presently in our country as well as on the international scenario. Now, in this particular presentation, I am going to speak on 3 specific aspects related to information and society. These are resource sharing and networking. Secondly, I'll just throw some light on digital libraries. Actually, the topic of digital libraries is very vast, and I'll just touch upon the topic and just try to convey to you how it is vital for us in the modern times to move towards the electronic and the digital libraries. And lastly, as most of you will be aware, National Knowledge Commission has given its recommendations, and for the sector on libraries, a large number of recommendations have come. So I'll just highlight some of these recommendations. Let me now start with the first aspect, that is resource sharing and networking. Now, as you are all aware, resource sharing is something which one resorts to in times of need, because resource is what we require in times of need, and sharing indicates something which is on give and take basis. And in libraries, resource sharing is defined as a mode of operation whereby library functions are shared by a large number of libraries or information organizations. And the basic goals of the resource sharing are to make available users in terms of access more material or more services. And besides that, as we have already established earlier, the budgets of the libraries are shrinking, so therefore we have to give services to our users at less cost, and then within the same money available, much more services are to be provided to users. In addition to that, there are certain approaches to resource sharing. Firstly, we must have some resources which need to be shared, because if we don't have any documents to share, it is pointless to be part of the resource sharing network. And secondly, everyone who is part of the resource sharing network should be willing to share, because suppose someone doesn't want to share anything with others, you cannot compel. So willingness is definitely required. And thirdly, a proper plan for accomplishing resource sharing has to be established before actually going into resource sharing. There are certain objectives of resource sharing. It helps to improve our services, because a lot of activities or services can be shared, and the time which we spend in duplication of effort can be utilized for other activities. To enable libraries to take on new services or projects, because when we are left with time, time and resources as well, we can take up new activities. Resource sharing helps to avoid duplication, because everyone is aware that materials are becoming more and more expensive, and in order to cut on costs, we can share the materials, especially in the same city or in the same region. Costly documents can be shared by everyone. In addition to that, one has to develop awareness of what others are doing. Then you should also know where you can find which document, because in resource sharing network there have to be some tools built up so that you can know which document is available where. And then in order to meet organizational or national objectives, and lastly, we can improve our professional and personal skills, because we get in touch with a large number of other organizations, and always mingling up with other professionals helps us to improve our professional and personal skills. There are several benefits of resource sharing. Firstly, it helps to improve access to materials. Secondly, enables cooperating institutions to stretch limited resources. Thirdly, allows greater staff specialization. Fourthly, improves services to users. Fifthly, avoids unnecessary duplication. Sixthly, reduces the number of places which one will need to go for services, because users will know where to find what and straight away can find help. Besides that, it can help in improving working relationship between cooperating librarians and also assist staff to keep up to date. There are several rationale for resource sharing. Because why do we need resource sharing at all? One of the main reasons why we have to go in for resource sharing is information explosion. Information is increasing at a tremendous rate. There is so much of volume and variety of information that user is very worried. User doesn't know what to find where, how to find out the relevant information. So one way out is resource sharing. Then cost of needed materials is going up day by day. In addition to that, advances in modern technologies, they help us to find new ways to have access to available information elsewhere. Besides this, there is wide disparity between resources available to individuals. Then the needs of the users are also increasing day by day. Inadequate budgetary resources are there, so then we have to look at others for their resources. And although at one point we are saying information explosion, we are also talking about shortage of information. Shortage of information, especially in countries or places which are located in faraway places. And besides that, lack of relevant information on a topic. So we cannot buy all the required materials and we have to depend on other organizations for the required materials. There are several aspects of information resource sharing. This includes improvement of collection through cooperative collection development. All the documents which are required by similar kinds of organizations could be acquired collectively. Then exchange of materials, because if a library knows where a particular document is available, they can always acquire from there, and then in turn they can always like offer their own materials. Besides that, some of the old journals, etc., we may have lot of duplicate issues of journals may be there. So why not give your duplicates to others, and what if they have some extra spare ones and you require, you get from there. Then interlibrary lending is another way out. Inter-institute document delivery amongst the different organizations that are part of the resource sharing encourage document delivery of documents required by their users. That means copies of documents should be made available. Then creation and production of guides such as union lists of periodicals of holdings within the libraries, union catalogs, bibliographic utilities, etc. Storage of materials could be another way out. Cataloging and classification could be carried out jointly instead of individually carrying out. Then photocopying services should be encouraged. Extracting and indexing services of the material acquired by the members of the resource sharing network could be carried out. Staff training and utilization of materials. Binding could also be carried out at one place. Conservation and preservation of materials which needs to be stored for many years to come. There are several barriers to cooperation. Now we are talking about all the plus points. We should also take into view the negative aspects of resource sharing. Firstly, there may be a desire for an individual library for local self-sufficiency, because one feels that they are self-sufficient, they don't want any intrusion from others, so why should they go in for resource sharing? Then size and status of libraries. There have been some libraries which are of long standing, they have a national status, they feel that if they be part of resource sharing, their privacy will be invaded, their rare materials may be misplaced or misused by other people coming and using their collection. Then technological sufficiency. Again, this is again a mindset. If you feel that you have sufficient technology applied to various activities, then why should you go into resource sharing? There may be psychological reasons, because in the past maybe you had a bad experience when you lent your materials to other libraries, so that may be the reason you don't want to be part of the resource sharing. then you may not be experienced in this kind of thing, so you don't want to be part of resource sharing. There may be traditional or historical reasons in the past. There may be legal, political or administrative reasons, because it may be that you may have certain materials which are confidential in nature, or maybe you need administrative clearance from your higher authorities. There may be some reports, etc. That may be another reason for not being part of resource sharing network. Besides that, physical and geographical reasons, because you are located in a far away place, far away city, or your state is much further from the main country, so that you may not be wanting to part of the resource sharing venture. Then there are certain conditions for success, because librarians who are attempting to participate in resource sharing must indicate their willingness to cooperate, must provide information on available resources, should aim to establish an effective communication system, and must possess adequate bibliographic tools. They must answer the following questions. Firstly, standardization of who is doing what. Secondly, for what purpose, and thirdly, by when, because these are the issues which need to be tackled before you are actually part of a resource sharing network. Basically, the standardization is a very major aspect here, because the manner in which one particular library is doing classification and cataloging may be different from other libraries. So unless and until all the libraries they adopt similar way of doing their activities, resource sharing is never going to be successful. Then regarding the purpose of resource sharing, you must have a common purpose in mind. Otherwise, if you have different varied objectives and purposes, then success will never come. And by when? By when means some time frame should be in mind. It's not that it will take, you feel that 3 years or 2 years is the period by which resource sharing will be successful. A target has to be set, and by then resource sharing has to start. Now, thorough planning has to go into resource sharing. For this, the first thing is identify and locate major collections, sources and materials. Besides that, collate, publish and distribute collective information for all participating bodies. Work out the basis for sharing, like what services need to be shared, reference or lending or copying, etc. Then means of sharing have to be established, and then plan for new developments in the knowledge of what others are doing. Then in resource sharing, there are a few aspects which need to be avoided. Firstly, don't think of cooperation as something which is supplementary and something without which you can possibly manage. In addition to that, proper planning should go into the whole operational details, because you should not forget that the time that needs to be spent on resource sharing. And then besides that, one should also not forget the very fact that when you are sharing your documents, etc. with others, obviously major operational changes will be coming, because working independently and working with others really needs a lot of changes. So and then besides that, who is going to fund? Is it an independent body, or it is everyone is pooling money, or what? And lastly, regarding resource sharing, I will just mention a few aspects. Firstly, lack of information on available resources may lead to chaos. Unwillingness to cooperate will lead to failure of resource sharing. Lack of effective machinery that can bring librarians together will also result in failure of resource sharing. Distance and lack of proper communication will also not help in resource sharing. And in addition to that, there should be a comprehensive national information policy. Then only resource sharing will be helpful. Then copyright restrictions are also to be taken into consideration, especially with regard to document delivery services, photocopying, etc. And if there is no coordinating authority, resource sharing will again not be successful. And then there may be inadequate resources which does not help in resource sharing. There are some examples of resource sharing. One of them is the OCLC. OCLC is one of the oldest examples of resource sharing. It was in the state of Ohio that Online Computer Library Center had come up, and this has helped a large number of libraries and users in over 112 countries to share the resources. So here there is cooperative acquisition, cataloging, lending, and library materials are preserved. And in our country there have been a few networks which have been highly successful. InflibNet is one such example. InflibNet of our University Grants Commission, which is for all the university and other college libraries of the country. Then in the city of Calcutta there is the CalibNet, which is again a Government of India project, and then currently being managed by the West Bengal Government and Societies Registration Act. And then there is the DELNet, earlier called the Delhi Libraries Network, now it is called the Development Libraries Network. So these have been some of the successful resource sharing ventures. Of course, just some representative examples have been given. Let's now move on to the next aspect, that is digital libraries. Because in the modern times we are talking about electronic information and digitization of information. So role of digital libraries is quite vital in the context of information and society. Now, what are the characteristics of a modern library system? I have already highlighted these in my previous presentation, so I'll just skip these. Let's take a look at how libraries have been evolving. We had the traditional libraries earlier. From that we had the automated libraries, where one or a few activities and functions were automated. And presently we are having what are called the electronic libraries. We are moving towards digital libraries, and many experts are of the view that in the future we may have virtual libraries. Now let's take a quick look at some of these, how these have evolved. In traditional library, as you all know, all operations are manual, or were manual I should say, because hardly any traditional libraries are left now. We had staff member for each function, and emphasis was always on collection building. So we always said that the library which had more books was a better library. Then came the automated libraries, where although we had the collection in the print form, many of the library functions or some of the library functions were automated. We had a computerized catalog, computerized circulation. And currently we are having electronic or digital libraries. Of course, digital libraries are rather few, but most of them are electronic libraries. Because now we are having resources in electronic form, optical devices and net means of information are available. Users may or may not visit library for access. Basically, the idea is that users want to have anytime, anywhere access. That's the main idea. So that is why we need to move towards the digital libraries. And then for the future, we are going to have virtual library. That is basically a library without walls. So here users can have access to library at their desktops, and again anytime, anywhere access. But it's not a reality. We must accept this because it's something for the future. It's going to be a library which has no walls, no boundaries. One has to be an authorized user to have access to the available collection. Now where are we? Let's take a look. Virtual library, it's quite far. Digital library, we have very few. In fact, we can name whatever we have presently. Automated library, we have gone a little beyond that, and of course traditional library phase we have already crossed. So where are we? So what I feel is that we are currently a hybrid library. Now what exactly is a digital library? A digital library is a library in which collections are stored in digital formats as opposed to print, microform or other media, and accessible by computers. The digital content may be stored locally or accessed remotely via computer networks. Now, you are all aware that traditional libraries are limited by storage space. On the other hand, digital libraries have the potential to store much more information, simply because digital information requires very little physical space to contain it. And so therefore, although initially we may have to spend a lot of money for creating a digital library, but in the long run we'll find that cost of the digital library will eventually become much lower than a traditional library. Because in traditional library we require staff members all the time for maintaining the collection. So people have to be paid salaries, and nowadays these are very huge amounts to be paid. Besides that, maintenance of the collection, paying rent for the building, acquiring new and new books all the time. So in digital libraries we do away with all these costs and fees. Then digital libraries can immediately adopt innovations in technology, providing users with improvements in electronic and audiobook technology, as well as presenting new forms of communication such as wikis and blogs. Anyway, I'm not going into such advanced aspects at the moment. Now, digital library has electronic collection of digital or virtual resources, allows online or offline access to the elements it organizes or houses, may include multimedia or multilingual data, and while accessible online, not identical to a website or a portal. Now, digitization is a process by means of which we can convert the data into electronic form. So, so here basically it can represent object, image or a signal, and result is called digital representation. So why should we carry out digitization? The reason is that we are all aware future is online, and not just for books or information sales, but delivery as well. So users, they can effectively search much more information instead of looking at a printed document which will require a long time to search. Here we can move quickly into an electronic document. And the digitization process has certain steps, because the digitization process includes converting the data into binary digits, ones and zeros, and then put it into the computer. And then once that is done, it can be linked to other materials to create multimedia. So these benefits are also available in digitized collection. And process of digitization involves two sets of activities. Firstly, process of digital conversion, whereby source materials are converted into digital form, and then secondly, the process of digitized information, which involves several activities related to the storage, organization, processing and retrieval of digitized information. There are certain hardware and software requirements. Just like for physical collection, we need certain equipment and certain activities to be carried out. Here also we need computer systems, scanners, digital camera, image processing and editing, file compression software and OCR software. And then storage media in digital libraries includes hyperbooks, CD-ROM and multimedia. Components of digital libraries include library systems having plenty of PCs with LAN facility, local databases, etc. Then there is provision to provide email services, access to servers and to remote databases. networks to support communication, enable transfer of data within and outside the country, system functions to coordinate, manage data entry, manipulation of data, etc. And besides that, trained manpower to handle various activities is required. Digital libraries have several advantages. Firstly, there are no physical boundaries. Secondly, round-the-clock availability, as I have said earlier, anytime, anywhere access. So information retrieval therefore becomes very easy. Preservation and conservation is also enabled in a proper manner. Space is no problem. Of course, certain costs initially are involved which can be later taken care of, and one could be part of networking or resource sharing in a very easy manner. Some examples of digital library are given here. Some examples of digital libraries from India, these are also given. For example, there is the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, then TIFR, NCSI, so some examples are given. And the last aspect, let me just highlight a few aspects related to the National Knowledge Commission. Now, National Knowledge Commission is a high-level advisory body to the Prime Minister of India, and the main idea here is that it covers sectors ranging from education to e-governance in 5 focus areas of the knowledge paradigm. The 5 focus areas are easy access to knowledge, concepts, effective creation of knowledge, application of knowledge systems, and services like e-governance. When we say easy access to knowledge, so as you can see here, literacy, language translation, and libraries is one main area, networks and portals. Now it is regarding the libraries that I'll be focusing on. There have been several recommendations. Regarding the different levels and forms of education, the different areas are just listed here. I'll just skip these at the moment. Then effective creation of knowledge. Again, all areas are covered: science and technology, intellectual property rights, innovation, entrepreneurship. Application of knowledge systems in traditional knowledge and agriculture, and services like e-governance are taken care of. So let's take a look at recommendation for libraries, because that is what our topic under consideration is, because in the context of information and society, this is what we are really concerned with in the present day context. Now, the role of libraries in providing widespread and inclusive access to knowledge is widely acknowledged here, and keeping this in view, there have been several aspects related to the libraries, because libraries should be centers of information and knowledge and gateway to national and global knowledge. So one of the aspects that is highlighted here is that all the existing libraries must modernize their collection services and facilities and become more proactive and collaborate with other institutions. And issues under consideration concerning libraries of National Knowledge Commission are institutional framework of libraries, networking of libraries, revamp education, training and research facilities in library information science sector, modernization and computerization of libraries, maintenance of private and personal collections, and lastly, staff requirements to meet changing needs of modern libraries. There are 10 recommendations given by National Knowledge Commission concerning libraries. Firstly, set up a National Commission on Libraries. Secondly, prepare a national census of all libraries, which is lacking at the moment. Revamp library information science education, training and research facilities. Reassess staffing of libraries. Set up a central library fund. Modernize library management. Encourage greater community participation in library management, promote information communication applications in all libraries, Facilitate donation and maintenance of private collection, and lastly encourage public-private partnership in library information science development. And further details related to the National Knowledge Commission focus area libraries are given in the Knowledge Commission website, which is address is listed below. That is knowledgecommission.gov.in. So if you go to this particular website, you can find many more details, because just a few salient aspects have been brought here in this particular connection. So with that, I would like to stop here.
Okay. Well, I have some questions to ask you.
Yeah.
We will start with resource sharing networking.
Sure.
In this regard, who should take up the responsibility of resource sharing?
Actually, a lot of studies have been done in this regard. Some of the earlier resource sharing activities, for example, for CalibNet and DelNet, it was the Department of Science and Technology. That time we had NISART. I think everyone is aware now that NISART is no more there. So NISART had taken up the task, and as you are aware, it's a government body. So what I feel is that some government agencies should come forward, because if it is left to the individual participating libraries, then there may be a fight for power. So there should be some national coordinating agency. Something like, in the past NISART had a feasibility study, and that should handle it.
Okay. And while you were talking about resources sharing and networking, you had also mentioned something about reference sources. So my question here is, what are the reliability of reference sources which we find on the net?
In fact, many of these are prepared by established publishers. So I think we should accept them. And then one of the main features regarding the reference sources on the net is that they are up to date. Because a printed reference source, of course, suppose take a look, because see, for example, Encyclopedia Britannica, they have stopped bringing out the printed one. It's all online now. Then we have so many other dictionaries, etc. And then it's much faster. Suppose I'm working on my table and I want to look up some details. I need not go to the library. I can look up on the net, and it's faster. And then moving in a reference source is much easier. Suppose it's a very thick volume encyclopedia, moving to the particular page, looking the index and looking for information takes a long time. But locating information on the net is easier. But then I'll again go back to what I said earlier, the up-to-dateness is definitely there.
So you mean to say, like, now the roll of book is going out of fashion?
No, I won't agree with that. I'm still a very old-fashioned person in that regard, because like when I joined this profession about say 28, 29 years ago, we were told that it will be a paperless society by the year 2000, and we are already in 2008. We still have, see, although I'm speaking, I'm still carrying something printed, something handwritten with me. So you can never replace the printed things. See, many people, even if we are talking about emails and electronic information, they keep a printout with them. Why do they do that?
That's right.
And then using the printed books cannot replace the electronic. See, we have, especially in our country, we have the power problem. And then so many people stay in the rural areas. They don't have the available technology with them. So I think one should complement the other, not replace exactly.
Yeah, and then while you were discussing something on digital libraries, some kind of question arises, like you have mentioned the advantage of digital libraries, right? But you did not mention anything about disadvantages of digital libraries? Do digital library has any disadvantage?
Yes, definitely. Actually, copyright is one major
Exactly,
problem
that's what I mean.
in digital libraries because everyone is talking about intellectual property rights. So, in fact, whatever is the existing collection, we unless we have proper approvals from the publishers, we cannot convert it into digitized form. But then there is a way out because there have been a lot of digital libraries coming up. People are trying to create their own e-documents.
Yes.
So that is a way out. And then maybe like if electronic journals, of course, is no problem. So therein we can go in for electronic and digitized information. But then e-books, and that too which are old and existing books, we have a problem with them. That's yes, I definitely agree with you. There is a problem with that.
And what about like reference services? Is it possible in digital?
Sure, it is.
I mean,
why not? You make available. See, recently there was a news, I think about a month ago or 3 weeks ago. The Delhi Public Library is going to have internet access for its users, and they are going to give DVDs, etc., to their users. So it means that users, when they come to the library, they will have the internet access facility, and that is what the Knowledge Commission is also recommending. So in our libraries, if we make available internet access facility available to users, then I think we can gradually replace our reference sources also with this kind of service.
And again, while you were discussing on digital libraries, like another, you have mentioned something about digital representation. So could you kindly, like explain further?
Digital
representation.
Representation. In which way you want me
you
to
were mentioning about
that?
I don't know, like maybe you were mentioning. I wasn't really getting what does it mean
Okay,
by
that means the documents, they need to be converted into...
Well, I think that's what
I was talking about digitization and the steps in digitization.
That's right.
Because there is a benefit here that because in a printed book we just see the printed words, but then when we are digitizing, we can have a multimedia kind of thing. That is what I was talking about. You can add picture to it, you can add sound to it. It could also be a moving picture. So those benefits are there.
Yeah, and while you were also discussing about this National Knowledge Commission, I was just a little, just wondering, what is the role of this National Knowledge Commission in promoting library activities?
Actually, they have given a large number of recommendations in several focus areas, and if the government, it's for the government agencies to apply that, because they have given their recommendations. What I have given is only the salient features. The details are available in their document as well as in their website. Actually, they have given recommendations for public libraries, special libraries, academic libraries, in each case separately. And some of the recommendations include something like education aspect. See, like curriculum developed, because if curriculum is revised, courses are revised, then of course our professionals will be in a better position to manage our libraries. And then wherever need be, see, a lot of libraries are there, they don't have proper staff, especially the academic libraries. They are lacking. School libraries. So if it is from the school library stage, the users are given proper service. I think by the time those school users, they grow up, they will be used to. And actually a step-by-step approach is required. It's not overnight that we can do. And then National Knowledge Commission also talks about modernization. Obviously that's a very good step, because we have to move, we have to keep pace with the international scenario.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Renu Arora, for sharing your knowledge and for your comprehensive explanation on information and society. With this, we come to the end of our discussion.
Thank you.
And We also look forward to have you in future.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. My pleasure.
Thank you so much once again.
Thank
Yeah.
you.